Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, May 13th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A cry for help today from the mayor of the city where there are more people per capita with the coronavirus than anywhere in our region. The number of cases is still growing countywide with 117 reported today and 5 more deaths. And from the governor, word on how the state is preparing for another kind of disaster, one that we're all familiar with. KPBS reporter John Carroll has details.
It's one of the smallest cities in the county, but National City has emerged as the hotspot for COVID-19. Today, in front of Paradise Valley Hospital, the city's only hospital, Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis set out the situation in stark numbers. National City now has 238 people who are positive for the virus. On a percentage basis, when balanced against the number of cases per 100,000 people, Sotelo Solis says that means National City is 382% above the average for the county, the highest number of cases per capita by far. She says her city needs help from the county.
Ask for a plan to increase testing for COVID-19 to get a more clear idea of how far the disease has progressed in National City.
The mayor says her city is partnering with various entities, healthcare providers, Catholic Community Services among them, to ramp up testing, to get help, including food assistance to the people who need it. National City is home to some of the most financially challenged folks in the county, and that means they're among the most vulnerable to COVID-19.
Who, again, over the last 2 months have been stocking the grocery stores, helping provide services in the healthcare and public safety community, and using mass transit to get to and from those jobs.
At this afternoon's county news conference, the county's Director of Health and Human Services said the county is already responding to the request for more help.
We're also working with the San Ysidro Health Center in working in concert with our county and the city in their food giveaway programs and aligning that with expanding testing.
Some have argued there are no longer fire seasons in the state of California, that it is a year-round challenge for all of us.
Despite the enormous financial challenges presented by COVID-19, with a state budget now very much in the red, Governor Newsom said California is not stepping back from fire preparedness. He says between January and May of this year, there were 60% more wildfires in the state compared to last year. He's allocating more money, so the state is ready.
A budget that will increase at the Office of Emergency Services over the existing baseline budget approved last year by $127 million.
Newsom says he'll ask for another $17 million to bolster and enhance California's fledgling earthquake early warning system, preparing for various disasters in the midst of a health crisis that gave us no opportunity to prepare. John Carroll, KPBS News.
In the North County, a fight to reopen a gym is continuing. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman was in Oceanside today where people were protesting ongoing COVID-19 restrictions that have kept some businesses closed.
I also want to thank our boys and girls in blue.
Today we had a rally for small businesses in Oceanside.
Lou Uredale and dozens of others gathered outside his gym in Oceanside today, demanding the right to reopen right now.
It's about the right to work and the right to feed your families. And I don't care if you're a blue or red, you have to work and you have to feed your families.
Some people who showed up to protest the coronavirus restrictions had Trump flags and hats, but Uredale says this fight is not about politics.
I didn't want that when I addressed the crowd at the beginning. I didn't want it to be about Trump. I didn't want it to be about Newsom. I couldn't stop people from showing up the signs because it's their freedom of expression.
Uredale was handcuffed and cited over the weekend for staying open in violation of county health orders. Today, he opened his gym once again and says he's taking precautions.
We're following very strict protocols here. We didn't get any guidance from California as to what we can use, so we kind of followed Texas and a few states that they limited capacity at 25%. So I said, well, we're a liberal state, so I'll do 20%, make it a little stricter.
Governor Gavin Newsom says gyms will reopen under phase 3 of the state's plan to ease restrictions. But Uredale says he can't wait anymore. If he doesn't open, he could lose his business.
I think this is a time for small businesses to be courageous. In the face of a fear of citations or whatever threats that people are made, you have to have the courage to stand up and fight for your right to work.
Uredale says his gym is a community where people can relieve stress and improve their mental health, and therefore should be considered an essential business that's able to be open.
We are a gym for everybody. We are classified as what you call a hardcore gym. Now, a hardcore gym is what the definition of that is people that want results.
While there was no sign of Oceanside police while we were out there, a spokesman says businesses open in violation of county and state health orders are subject to citation. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
While schools and government offices grapple over how to safely reopen, some area casinos say they're ready to resume business. But KPBS's Amita Sharma says San Diego County health officials are vowing to fight the plan.
County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten said today she wants to stop plans by San Diego's largest casinos to reopen next week.
We want to make it perfectly clear that we do not agree with the reopening of casinos on May 18th. We feel that the health officer's order does extend to our tribal nations in this particular situation, and we are working with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to try to address this issue further.
Saigon Casino says its May 20th reopening will be staggered. In Phase 1, every other slot machine will be turned off for physical distancing, and no more than 3 players on blackjack and other table games. Also, Saigon says all of its surfaces now have special coating that fights germs, and it has installed plexiglass shields and thermal cameras to spot fevers. In a statement, Saigon Band Chairman Cody Martinez said, quote, "We are excited to welcome back our guests and start bringing back the hospitality, gaming, and fun that Saigon Casino Resort is known for." Viejas Casino and Resort is reopening May 18th. The casino says it has recently invested in what it calls UV germicidal technology, and it will require face masks and social distancing. Valley View is also reopening next week. But even with these added measures, physician Carl Steinberg says he will tell his elderly patients to stay away from casinos.
It just seems that they are at extremely high risk for bad outcomes if they catch COVID. And whatever a casino might try to do to prevent it, there's going to be no way to prevent it because people can be shedding this virus even though they're not running a fever. And there's really no way to do social distancing in a casino.
Meanwhile, Verona and Pala casino operators say they've not made a decision yet on when to reopen. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
On the same day the Homeland Security Secretary visited San Diego, a group of medical professionals held a vigil outside the county administration building in downtown. They're part of a nationwide movement by doctors calling for the release of civil immigration detainees during the coronavirus pandemic. The Otay Mesa Detention Center currently has the largest outbreak in immigration detention in the country, with 149 confirmed cases of coronavirus. One detainee who was being held there died last week of COVID-19.
Well, as you're aware, we had our first COVID death last week, and it was an entirely preventable situation. Otay Mesa Detention Center is not able to offer physical distancing, not able to offer adequate protection for the people who are housed there.
At the same time, just down Pacific Highway, Acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf spoke to the media following a tour of the San Diego-Tijuana border from a Coast Guard helicopter. He said that ICE will not be releasing detainees just to avoid exposing them to COVID-19.
But what we're not going to do is we're not going to release all of the detainees in our care. It's irresponsible. It's irresponsible to the communities that we release them into. And so we're going to do this in a much more targeted effort, case-by-case basis, looking at individual cases, referring them to the public health officials, making sure they get the medical care that they deserve.
Wolf also said since the pandemic, almost all migrants apprehended along the southern border are now returned to Mexico within 2 hours. He says this is in the interest of public safety. The CDC is warning doctors to be on the lookout for a dangerous inflammatory syndrome in children that could be linked to coronavirus infection. As Camila Bernal reports, the syndrome is marked by persistent fever, inflammation, poor function in one or more organs, and other symptoms similar to shock.
A 12-year-old girl in Louisiana suffers a heart attack.
It kind of felt like I couldn't really do anything because I was in a lot of pain.
In New York, a 9-year-old boy recovers in intensive care.
He was just crying out in pain anytime anyone went near his belly.
2 different children in different states with different symptoms, but there may be one link: COVID-19.
As a parent, I can tell you, this is a parent's worst nightmare.
The CDC is expected to warn doctors to watch for a dangerous inflammatory syndrome in children that could be tied to coronavirus infection. Symptoms include persistent fever, rash, abdominal pain, vomiting, and swelling of the hands and feet.
We thought that children were not especially affected by the virus. To now find out that they might be, and it might be several weeks later, this is truly disturbing.
The illness is being called pediatric multisystem inflammatory syndrome, and the number of cases is rising.
I think having kids get this sick, having them get some of the deadly complications is just something that as a society we just can't bear to see.
And as doctors try to determine why children are getting sick, health experts warn it shows there's a lot we don't know about COVID-19.
We really better be very careful, particularly when it comes to children.
Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
Today, San Diego County health officials said they haven't seen any cases of the inflammatory syndrome linked to COVID-19, but they say they are monitoring the situation closely. Meanwhile, daycares can now accept children whose parents are non-essential workers. But because of miscommunications by county officials, daycares are just now getting the message. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregeser explains the confusion.
When the coronavirus pandemic hit, the county ordered the closure of all daycares except those that serve the children of essential workers. And those daycares had to drop their class sizes from as many as 24 to 10. During a May 7th news conference, Supervisor Nathan Fletcher announced a loosening of restrictions. Here's what he said.
You cannot effectively reopen jobs if schools are closed and there's no places for kids to go. We are making some modest adjustments to our child care provisions in our public health order. We are simply going, right now the limit was 10 kids, we're going to 12.
But he left out a crucial part of the county's revised policy, that daycares could accept children of non-essential workers. This means many more daycares could reopen if they choose to. Yet, nearly a week after the county's decision, several daycare owners contacted by KPBS were still in the dark. I haven't received any information on accepting children from non-essential workers, said Holly Weber, the owner of Magic Hours Preschool in Mira Mesa, in an email. And Fletcher was wrong about something else. He said daycares could increase their class sizes to 12. That's not the case. The maximum class size for any daycare regulated by the state is still 10. And relatively few are not subject to state regulations, according to a spokeswoman for the state's child care licensing division. A spokesman for Fletcher acknowledged the miscommunication, but Fletcher refused to do an interview. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
The California State University system announced that nearly all of its classes will be online in the fall to protect against a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong spoke with SDSU students about what this is doing to their college experience.
To be told that, hey, you guys already paid your tuition and we're making this online, like right in the middle of finals week, was a kind of a big shocker.
Fabrizio Lacara Ramirez is a third-year English major at San Diego State University. He said when his classes went online in March, the dynamic changed immediately.
It's not really the classroom all looking at the teacher and, or the professor and the professor looking at us. It's more of like this very strange, everyone is looking at each other at the same time and you feel eyes on you at all times.
So Lacara Ramirez wasn't pleased when the Cal State system made the announcement on Tuesday that nearly all classes will stay online for the fall semester. The biggest issue for many students is whether they'll have to pay full tuition for an inferior product.
I'm paying about $4,000 since I'm an in-state student.
Carisha Navarra is a fourth-year marketing major who needs one more semester to graduate.
It's a lot for all classes that's online, and we're paying that $4,000 for what's supposed to be a university education.
A spokesman for the CSU system said the governor's revised budget will determine whether the colleges can offer tuition discounts. In the meantime, students are hoping professors will spend the summer creating better online courses.
But I guess it's nice that they told us earlier, because that gives professors a lot more time to plan, as opposed to the emergency shift to online this spring, which is kind of messy because some professors really didn't do anything for class.
Lacara Ramirez still has hope that some classes might be able to return in the fall. At the very least, he hopes the fall won't be a repeat of the chaos this spring.
The syllabi for this semester did include like a earth-shattering pandemic in it.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
We're following all of the latest coronavirus developments for you at kpbs.org. Click on the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage, and you'll be taken to a page with all of our recent reports. It was another cool day across the county, but we may be in for a warm-up. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Dry weather's in our future, but also nighttime and morning clouds and fog along the coast. Some of that will extend into some of the interior valleys here. This will continue right through the weekend into early next week. And as we take a look at our temperatures, they're going to start to warm up just a little bit over the next few days. So it'll feel pretty good out there. Then over the weekend, and in more particular Sunday into Monday, we'll start to see the next cooling trend coming in. And we're back to the gusty winds, the low clouds, the fog, areas of drizzle, and we can't rule out a shower again either. As we check out our weather for today, well, we had those showers early, and then it turned out to be pretty nice. And as we look at our temperatures tonight, we'll be dropping down to the lower 60s. Borrego Springs, Campo's down to the mid-40s. Ramona's at 52. Escondido at 57 and Oceanside at 56. Clouds will start to thicken up later at night. So late at night, early in the morning, we'll have our low clouds and fog. That'll extend into some of the interior valleys here. And then everything will start to back off again as we take you through the morning. So we'll see increased sunshine. And as we look at Thursday's weather, well, dry weather and comfortable temperatures, many areas. Forecast highs up to 91, Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna's at 62, Ramona's at 74, El Cajon at 78, San Diego 72, Oceanside 72. So nothing too much to complain about those temperatures. And there you can see our forecast, clouds and then some sun. Temperatures cooling, maybe a smidgen there Sunday into Monday. Interior valleys, some areas will have some fog and then some sun. And then you can see temperatures dropping off a little bit Sunday into Monday. In the mountains, well, you can see it turns cooler here by early next week. And in the desert areas, too, it's warm, but then temperatures will start to back off on Monday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
At the moment, many homeless veterans are staying at the convention center. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says the clock is ticking on the VA to find a more permanent solution.
Jeff Stunze is an Army veteran. He had a stroke 8 years ago, which affects his speech and left him in a wheelchair. He's been homeless ever since.
Where are you going to go if that happens, when that happens?
I don't know. Homeless. Sucks.
Stunzi is among 150 veterans living in the San Diego Convention Center right now. The city moved people living in shelters to the convention center to allow more space for social distancing as a way to limit the spread of COVID-19. It's a temporary solution to a long-standing problem, says Cindy Trico, who runs the housing program for homeless veterans at the San Diego VA.
Obviously, it's better to have people housed in permanent housing than to live in a temporary shelter. So our goal is to really work with landlords that we can identify and really make ourselves available to get veterans out of the convention center.
According to a city spokesperson, the city has not decided how long the convention center will remain open as temporary housing. Adding urgency, this week the mayor announced that the veterans shelter in the Midway district will not reopen. Instead, San Diego will work with Chula Vista to create a regional center. Trico says the VA has enough housing vouchers to pay for permanent housing.
We have resources in terms of vouchers. Now we need resources in terms of landlords.
The problem is finding enough landlords to take the vouchers. Typically, the VA would do things like physically searching for vacancies, but their ability to find housing is limited by the virus. They're asking landlords to contact the VA. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
An Asian grocery store in Kearny Mesa is now requiring temperature checks before allowing shoppers inside. 100.4 degrees is the cutoff for customers at Saigon Market. Face coverings are also required. Some shoppers were surprised about the temperature checks, but say they felt reassured by the safety measure.
I saw the thermal scan and I was like, wow, they're enforcing this. I think that's a good thing, a good precaution.
It seems like everybody's agreeing to do it. This is kind of a specialty store, so you really don't have a choice. You got to either go with it or go shop somewhere else, and it's not always easy to shop somewhere else because, especially after you wait in the line, you know, you're already here, so.
In-state guidelines released yesterday, restaurants are asked to screen customers for symptoms, but doesn't specifically say temperature checks. And if you think groceries are getting more expensive, then you would be right. The Labor Department says last month the prices of staples like eggs and meats, cereals recorded their highest increases in 46 years. Eggs saw the biggest spike up 16%. All 6 of the major grocery store food categories are up at least 1.5%. Quarantine or not, La Jolla Playhouse's Without Walls Festival must go on. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando previews the WOW Goes Digital Festival.
The goal of La Jolla Playhouse's Without Walls, or WOW Festival, is to force theater out of traditional spaces and into the community for site-specific work. Last year, Blind Spot Collective created Hall Pass at a high school. Now, with the coronavirus pandemic, Blind Spot Collective's co-founder, Catherine Hannah Schrock, says it's a curious time for the organization.
Because part of our vision in general is to illuminate stories in the blind spot and to amplify marginalized voices. And we, in this moment, are all in the blind spot. We're all marginalized. We're all behind walls and doors and windows in our homes. But we're theater people, so that means that we need to have our audience members be the live and in-person component of the work, which is really kind of the premise in which we started thinking about our new piece, Walks of Life.
Walks of Life is an auditory theater experience in much the same way that you listen to a podcast. Audience members will be asked to download an audio file and listen to an audio file, hopefully from something like a smartphone, that will allow them to actually leave their home and take a 30 to 40 minute walk.
Then a narrator takes you through 3 short plays.
And each of those plays is then positioned as if it might be a slice of life that's happening behind the fences or front doors of the houses you're passing on that walk through your own neighborhood. We're really interested in forging imagined connections with with our neighbors, which for us is one of the losses of this time. We don't necessarily have the opportunity to go to the park or walk down the street and engage with neighbors in a physical sense, or with friends and family for that matter in a physical sense.
You could say it's an auditory, imagined voyeurism into your neighbors' lives, but with the goal of creating a sense of connection while in quarantine.
That they will both feel connected to someone's unique experience, because we love the idea of bridging disparate communities, but also that they'll feel some resonance in some of the very common experiences that we're all having right now in this moment.
And in this moment of sheltering at home, David Israel Reynoso sees possibilities rather than limitations.
What I love about being in the creative arts and the creative field, and sort of being someone who is having to think creatively in terms of problem solving with work like this, it's important to focus more on the possibilities that are still available, despite the fact that we do have some things that are hedging us in. I mean, there's no denying we are certainly limited. And yet, I think limitations encourage innovation.
The Playhouse's artist in residence wants us to consider if the screens we look at all day could be portals to something else.
I think a lot of the content that's digital, you can also be quite passive in your seats, in your bed, wherever it is that you're watching. And I think instead, I'm hoping that this is something that encourages participation and encourages you to activate your mind in a way that you might not otherwise in your day-to-day within the idea of being quarantined right now.
As with Reynoso's previous WOW project, Las Quinceañeras, this year's digital offering of Fortaleza draws on disparate media influences to provide an inventive, multisensory journey, but this time without ever having to leave your living room. And by going digital this year, the festival ups its wow factor by turning quarantine into site-specific inspiration and creating an opportunity to reach more people than it ever could with its live performances. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.